You are now listening to Mondays with Mike Martinez.
Hey guys, welcome back to Mondays with Mike. Super excited to have a very special surprise for you today. I have my Vice President of Operations, Julia. We're going to talk about her journey working with us, where she came from, what her experience has been like working for me the past 8 years, and most importantly, what it's like to be a Vice President of Operations of a $21 million business. Thank you, Julia.
All right. Thank you for having me, Mike.
I appreciate you so much. Thanks for giving us a little bit of your time throughout your busy schedule today.
No problem. No problem.
So, Julia, what year did you start working for me?
I started September of 2016.
Okay.
Yep.
2016.
Yes.
What were you doing before you started working for us?
Prior to that, I do have a rough background. I was kind of in and out of jail. I was running the streets. I had got into collections in 2014, but I stopped. I went when I did a term, came back out, and then I went to you in 2016, September. I got picked up on a parole violation, went away all of October, and came back in November 2016 with a clean slate, and just started really trying to change my life then.
I remember that. I didn't even know you worked for an agency before us.
I did for about 3 months. And then I started back on drugs, and I ended up losing it and just ended up getting busted again.
Is it too brutal and too soon to talk about what kind of drugs you were involved in?
No, not at all. I was hooked on meth for over 30 years, and it really took a toll on my life, and it took me to prison a few times, and it wasn't until later in life when I decided to get my life together, you know.
Where did you grow up at?
I was originally born in Orange County in Santa Ana, and then I moved out here to Ontario when I was about 10 years old. So I've been out here in Ontario since about 10.
Santa Ana to Ontario,
Yes.
Involved in drugs, crystal meth. I can relate.
Mm-hmm.
I smoked meth. If those viewers don't know, I smoked meth from about 18 years old to 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
From 15, 16 years old, I started snorting it for several years until I started smoking it. I was the most horrible addiction that
It is.
anybody can experience, other than like heroin and all this other stuff nowadays is killing people. But we'll leave that topic for another day. So you found us. How did you find us?
I used to work with Quinn and Aaron back in 2014. And I reached back out to Aaron, and he was with you at the time, and he brought me back.
My general manager at the time. So he brought you on because you were working for him before.
Yes.
How did you find that agency?
Through somebody in jail. Yeah. I don't know if you know, but Georgina, I was in jail with her sister, and we both got out together, and we both started working for Quinn.
That's crazy. I didn't even know that.
Yep.
So 2016, how much were you getting paid? Do you remember? And
I do.
What was that experience like working for us?
I do. I started off as an hourly employee, and I was making about $250 a week, and working part-time. I wasn't full-time. And I stayed because I really liked the hustle. It kind of reminded me of the streets a little bit. So it kept me. It did.
We tend to attract
yes,
those type of people. Huh? That type of personality.
Right.
So 2016,
Mm-hmm.
you were making $250 a week. And how long did it take before you became a manager?
It took me to about 2020, right after COVID, I became a manager. And it wasn't really I wouldn't say like an appointed position. It was just like, oh, she's here every day. Let's have her open up at 5:30 in the morning. So I kind of took on that role of just opening up. They trusted me with the key, and I was there. And then day by day, I started getting more tasks. I wasn't really labeled as a manager, wasn't getting paid extra, but that's when I started taking on more responsibility because of my work ethic. I was there every day. I didn't call off. And by this time I had turned 1099 and I was still in there every day. And then finally I was actually given a salary, and I was given $500 a month to be able to come in, stay open early, stay late, run payments, and just help other 1099s out.
You were already closing deals. You weren't just generating incoming calls. You were actually closing deals already.
I started closing. I went from a W-2 dialer to a 1099 dialer, and then I went to closing. And I learned how to close by one of the managers handed me a stack of declines and says, have at it. And I kind of just was self-taught.
What year was that?
That was in 2019. I started closing.
So you started closing 2019. You became an unofficial manager in 2020.
In 2020.
You became an official manager when?
A year later.
2021.
Yes.
Okay, so I remember in 2020 during COVID, 2019 was very challenging for us. I almost went out of business. A lot of employees didn't even know that was a case, including Aaron. He didn't know how bad things were. And then in 2020, he had an idea. But in 2020, I learned how to run businesses the right way. I learned how to operate. I started hiring mentors and coaches, and I started learning about, setting targets and metrics and KPIs and things like that. And then we broke our first record of $1 million. We
hit $1 million.
Right during COVID.
March of 2020.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. So, obviously we started finding success during COVID in 2020. So we found the need for real management structure. And even though we were putting up decent numbers back in those days, it wasn't anywhere near what we were doing now. So what did 2022 look like for you?
2022, that's when I became a floor manager. I went from just a kind of unspoken manager for like 1099s, but I became a floor manager for W-2s. I was always a successful dialer. So they put me in that role to be able to train W-2s. My first year with the Empire, I won top dialer of the year. I collected the most money. And then the following year in 2018, I won employee of the year at our Christmas party. So I got back-to-back awards my first couple of years. Wasn't the fastest dialer, but I was an effective dialer. So
quality.
Yes.
Versus quantity.
Yes. So that's when they put me into the W-2 position to be able to train W-2s.
You did that for a year, right?
I did that for almost, yes, for
2023.
Yes.
So this is where it started getting interesting because my general manager ran the company for me. I was an absentee owner all these years. From about the time when he came on as GM, I stopped being so involved in the business and I became more like just guidance for the general manager, support, kind of giving them resources and direction. But I really let him run the company. So 2022 is right around the time when we parted ways.
Yes.
What do you remember about that?
I remember you calling us into the conference room.
You remember what month it was?
It was March.
Of 2022?
2022, because Gal was left a year later, March 2023.
So in 2022, March, when the GM left the organization, what exactly do you remember?
I remember you calling all management into the office and let us know what happened and let us know, okay, what are you guys gonna decide? Are you gonna walk with him or are you gonna stay? I chose to stay, and that's when things started to take a turn a little bit. We started working a little bit closer together. I actually started to get to know you. I really didn't know you prior to this. I seen you in the office and seen you address the office, but never actually worked side by side with you. And that's when this relationship started to develop.
Yeah. So I want everybody to understand what happened here. So from 2016, when I hired the GM, I used to work for him. He was my manager at a law firm. He was the general manager of a law firm where I worked at. I ended up leaving to go work at a commission-based agency. And then he ended up leaving to run a commission-based agency. And I tried to recruit him for, at least a couple of years. Finally, the agency that he was at was going to go out of business. And he seen that the ship was going down. So he jumped ship and then came on with me. And then in 2016, after a few months of him working for me, I trusted him enough to let him run the company.
Right.
And then I took a step back or two steps back and became an absentee owner. I remember going to the Christmas parties And 70% of the staff didn't even know who I was.
Right.
Right. I would have a speech and they're like, who's this Mexican dude? I thought we worked for the white guy.
Right.
And he was my GM. Right. So I want people to really understand what happened here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I have a GM that is the face and the leader of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
And he ends up leaving in 2022. We parted ways. You know, we had a kind of disagreement and different visions.
Mm-hmm.
So we parted ways. And I'll be honest with people. A lot of it was that my expenses were growing and he was responsible for growing the expenses and he wasn't helping grow the revenue.
Right.
So if he's in charge of the company, he should be growing the revenue with the expenses. They should be growing together, not just expenses.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took a look at what I was paying him and he was way overpaid and not wanting to share with the other management.
With managers, right.
So what I asked him to do is to take a chunk of his pay because I couldn't afford to pay anybody else, anything else. My expenses kept climbing and my revenue was not. And I know we've talked about this a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but people need to understand what happened here, right? Why I lost. I consider him a good general manager.
Right.
On Brandon Dawson's MOI scale that you understand because we speak Cardone Ventures
Mm-hmm.
language. On the MOI scale, he was a good manager. He was a good GM.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't great. He wasn't excellent. He wasn't remarkable.
Mm-hmm.
He was good, right? So when he ended up leaving, it put me in a situation where I had to step up to become a good leader
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think I was a good leader at all, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I had to step up and I had to decide, am I going to be a good leader or am I just going to let the company sink and am I going to go do something else?
Right.
So what helped me make that decision though, was seeing how all of you had trust and confidence in me to
Mm-hmm.
lead you. That's really where I decided, okay, I'm going to step up. I'm going to stay in this business. I was thinking of just getting out of collections and going on into real estate.
Right.
So you helping make that decision because essentially you were the next leader of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
Now I had another agency without the GM, a
Right.
side agency, and we're doing okay. We're doing pretty good. That was LAP.
Mm-hmm.
Galvez was running that company, another manager that I had in place. So when that happened, what did you think?
I was a little nervous actually when all that happened. When Aaron left, Aaron was all I knew. From the time I got into collections to the time he left, he was all I knew. After he left, I was like, you know what? We're the ones that did most of the work anyways. He just kind of,
Yeah.
we were the ones in the trenches. So, and then when he left and then I was like, either I'm going to stay and grow or follow what I know. And I took the risk and went with the unknown. So it was nerve-wracking. It really was, I did have to make some decisions. Again, wasn't familiar working with you. I didn't even know if you really knew who I was. And but I knew the way I proved myself prior to this, I could prove myself again.
And you did, and you have. And one thing that comes to mind when you say that is, first of all, none of the managers,
Mm-hmm.
aside from Carlos, really knew me personally.
Right.
Carlos worked with me. A couple of them worked with me when I was on the phones before
Mm-hmm.
I was an owner and things like that. So they knew of, I guess, my character, they knew
Mm-hmm.
my integrity, and they knew things like that. But when Aaron left, it was nerve-wracking, but I'll never forget that you told me when I said, okay, if you guys need to make a decision,
Mm-hmm.
are you going to stay with me and are we going to keep this thing going? Are you going to keep this thing going with me? Or are you guys deciding to exit the business, right? At that time, Aaron had not started his company yet. No
Right.
one even knew, I think, that he was going to start his own company. I don't even think he knew
Mm-hmm.
until afterwards. He was kind of forced to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But no one knew what he was going to do. So when all that happened, what I was trying to decide is, what does everybody here do?
Right.
I wanted to understand what everybody's role was because I wasn't involved with the day-to-day operations of the
Mhm.
managers. So when I started getting the information from everybody,
Mhm.
I was like, shit, you guys do everything.
Right.
What did he do?
Mm-hmm.
He was a master at delegating.
Right.
And that's fine. It is what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that made me realize we're going to be okay.
Right.
Because everybody here did everything for the company. He really didn't do much other than report to me what was going on.
Yeah.
And he got paid very, very well for it.
He was the only one allowed to talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. We weren't.
And yeah. And let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
Now that you are my number two,
Mm-hmm.
now that you are in charge of the company,
Mm-hmm.
well, now Natalie, my wife,
Right.
is the chief operating officer that works closely with you so I can focus on the other business.
Mm-hmm.
But now that you see the relationship that we have, is that your policy that the other managers are not allowed to talk to me?
No, I encourage it. I definitely encourage it because it can't always be just one person.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we work a little closer together than the other managers. However, everybody has a voice and everybody has input and has great ideas. And it's not just from one person. And I think us being shut down, or when we were in a meeting, we were not allowed to speak to you. I just feel like there was something to hide there. In this, that's one of our core values is transparency. So I encourage all the other managers and executives to speak up. You guys have to speak up. Mike is very cool to speak with. He's very understanding. He's fair, and he will take what you say into consideration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now Natalie has had a lot of training as a business owner and how to run an operation.
Mm-hmm.
And she's naturally analytical and she's becoming a driver and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So naturally it's a good place for her to be working directly with you now so that I can focus on building NPG and the agency. But let's talk about, so from 2022, what did it look like from 2022 to 2023? What did you experience? Can you talk about the hardship that we went through, the wins, the challenges?
Yes.
What do you remember about that?
I know we wanted to scale. I was working closely with Galvez. Galvez kind of stepped up as the lead, and I was working closely under him. So it was kind of me and Galvez.
He was the VP of operations
Yes.
and you were the director.
Yes.
So he was right under you. He reported directly to me. And the reason I made that decision is because he knew me for many, many years.
Right.
I felt like he was good at building that little branch without Aaron.
He did.
He built that up pretty nice and pretty quick. And he showed me very good leadership. Was he perfect? Absolutely not. None of us are.
Right.
Did he make some mistakes? Yeah, he made some mistakes. But overall, he showed me that he could be a good leader.
Right.
Again, we want to make sure that we distinguish the word good and great. No one has been great yet.
Right.
Up until this point. Right. Up until 2022, 2023, I don't think any of us were great yet.
Right.
We were good. We were between average and good. So I made that decision because of his experience, because of what he had already proven to me. And number three, he had my trust, and I felt like he was gonna ride with us. Right. So 2022, 2023, you're working closely with Galvez. What was that like?
I learned a lot from another aspect. That's when we were kind of started working closer together too. So it was more of a learning phase for me. A lot of it was how to run a company, and just the beginning of it, because I haven't even got my feet all the way wet yet, and it was more of a learning phase during that, and it was more of a time for me to step up and to continue to prove myself of what type of manager I was.
The opportunity was there.
Yes. It presented itself, and it was up to me to take advantage of that opportunity.
What did you learn from Galvez in 2022?
Galvez started building a culture. He had built a good culture with LAP, which was different from UPC at the time. And UPC wasn't very big on culture. They were real cliquey. And that's one of the things I did learn from Galvez and his wife. They had very good culture up at LAP. And that's what I had liked. The different contests they had, just different things they implemented to make it more of a family.
The trainings.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's why I say that he was good. So Aaron was good at running a dictatorship.
Yes.
type of business.
Yes.
Like, you know, do what I say or get the fuck out. And like military, he was in the army.
Right.
So he ran the agency like a military. Galvez used to be like that. I don't know what happened with him, where he found more of attracting bees with honey and supporting them and giving them the training.
Giving them chances and training.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah. He became more of like I don't want to say motivator, but more like a supportive manager and trying to inspire them and trying to build that culture piece.
I think his wife had a lot to do with it too.
She was a teacher.
Yes. So he
was a teacher.
He was a teacher.
Yeah.
And she used to work in HR.
Yeah.
So
they complemented each other.
Yes, they did.
Well.
And they implemented a lot of the stuff. And I think she complimented him, and that's why he did a change.
Is there anything else that you can think of that you learned from him in 2022 that really impacted your growth as a director of operations?
No, with him, that's when we started going to seminars, workshops. So I wouldn't say necessarily from him, but during that time when he was there, that's when we first started going to our Cardone workshops. And that's when I really started learning. Our first 2 workshops were with him.
So now we're in the beginning of 2023.
23, yep.
I was still involved in real estate, pretty heavy, decent. In 2022, it was a good year for us in real estate. I was pretty involved. And I went to a Grant Cardone Real Estate Summit. I went twice that year. I went in the middle of the year, and then I went at the end of the year. In December, I took Natalie because we were both involved in that. And that's where I met Brandon Dawson and Cardone Ventures. And I ended up signing up for the 10X 360 workshop, and they gave us a couple of workshops. So January, February, right around that time, they asked me, what's your biggest challenge? And I said, like every fucking business owner says, or at least they should be saying, because it's the truth, for the most part, your biggest challenge is people. So I said, my biggest challenge is people. Hiring people, training them, getting them to stay and retaining them and all that, right? We didn't know those words back then. We didn't know, I want to hire people and I want to keep them. I don't want to lose them, bro. Right? So we went to the People's Workshop and they said, you have 2 tickets, one for you and bring whoever helps you run the company. And I couldn't choose between you and Galvez because even though Galvez was my VP at that time and you were the director, I felt like the potential, there was just something there that I felt that you had to be involved. So I paid an extra $2,500 to get you in that room. You didn't know that. I don't know if I shared that with you.
No,
I paid an extra $2,500. And back then, you know, we made a lot of money, but I wasn't making what I'm making.
Not like today.
2,500 back then was like, oh shit, I got to pay 2,500. But I'm like, okay, it should be worth it. You know, if they're going to teach us how to hire, Julie is doing a lot of that. I need to bring her along. So what do you remember about the very first Cardone Ventures event?
I was actually blown away. I was blown away of how much I learned. There was so much stuff packed into 2 days. And I was blown away. Blinders were taken off. Like I had no idea. I felt like I was in kindergarten, you know, barely starting to learn how to hire. And I had been hiring people for like over a year already. And was my process broken? Yes, totally. You know, nobody ever sat down with me and taught me how to hire. You know, we hired and fired on the spot. You know, there was no process. There was no write-up system. And that first People's Essential was very eye-opening. It was so eye-opening to where one workshop of the People's Essential, you wouldn't have got all the information. Not at all.
This is where, Julia, we get to deliver value to the people that are investing their time in watching this. So time is our most valuable asset. So those people that are investing time right now, this is what they came for.
Right.
Business owners that want to start a business, or business owners that just launched a business, or business owners that have people problems that want to scale a business. Let's give them some value right now.
Okay.
Let's teach them something from a $21 million vice president of operations that has been to 2 people's workshops
Mhm.
that has done a lot with Cardone Ventures and has had formal business training to run and operate a business.
Mhm.
What are the biggest things that you learned from the people's workshop?
Let's see. The biggest things I've learned from there.
I know there's so many.
Yes, there is. There is. I would say every company, we need a mission statement and a vision statement. What's our why? Why do we get up in the morning? We didn't have one before. You know, we kind of just got up for our own selfish reasons. But we need you have to have a why. You know, and your own selfish reasons are only going to take you for so long. But as a manager, as a leader, you have other people's livelihood in your hands. And for us to have a mission and the vision of why we're doing this, and that's one of the things we came up with our mission and vision at the People's Essentials. Our core values, you know,
I buy them now.
core values are huge. You know, they're not just for work. I use them in my everyday life, you know, and that's something that I never knew. I've never lived by a core value. You know, I didn't even know what a core value was. I didn't know I had to have a why. What's my why? But everybody has to have a why. Why do you do what you do? You know? And that's one of the biggest things that I've taken away was just the beginning of it all, you know?
Yeah. So, a couple of things that I want to share is that we used to spend like what, $500 a week or $2,500 a month roughly on Indeed ads, hiring people. And we would probably get 5 interviews, maybe hire 1 person, and we'll be lucky if they showed up. If they did, we'd lose them in a week. So it was very frustrating hiring people. And it all started from our ads.
It did.
Our hiring process, our onboarding process. So I can't give away too much secret sauce because we only have limited time on this podcast to talk about this. But that is the very first thing to a business, right? From running your ad. So Brandon says, finding, attracting, developing, and retaining people, and then growing them. Right. So those are some of the most important things that I took away from there. And I know that it was a freaking game changer.
Yes.
At the beginning of 2023, when we went to that people's workshop, that's the very first Cardone Ventures event workshop that I've been to. It was my second Grant Cardone event that I've ever been to. Aside from the real estate summit, that was it. And I'm like, I remember looking at you and Galvez. And I'm like, all right, you guys ready to build something crazy? Like, let's lean on these guys to learn.
Right.
And let's go out there and fucking crush it. You know? Let's give them one more nugget. What else did you learn that was very valuable?
Well, that was definitely one of the things too, the ads. We attracted people from those ads once we switched them that we still have today. And our retention wasn't like that before. They would last 3 months and be done, you know? If they weren't doing something, we didn't take the time to develop it, we developed them. And that was one of the things that I've learned from the People's Essentials. It's all about training and developing your people. You don't just hire them and leave them. You don't ever speak to them again. No, it's a continuous training and developing. You got to make their success easy. And that was something that I was never aware of. We got to make our people's success easy for them as leaders.
Yeah, we were running a cheesy ass operation.
Big time.
How do we get
Big
to
time.
11 million?
Right.
But when I hired Cardone Ventures and I started working with them for coaching on how to run the business and things like that, I felt like we were about to break. I'm like, all right, we're doing good. We're doing all right, but we're hanging on by a shoestring at the same time. Like we're about to pop, you know?
Right.
Brandon calls them snapbacks and slipbacks. When you're growing a company and then you start going backwards, either by 1 step or 2 steps, it's either a slipback or a snapback. And I felt like I was on the verge of that. I didn't even know what those things were back then.
Right.
And then our second event was, do you remember what the second event was?
The leadership in Miami.
Yeah. So we also took Galvez to that. I think that's kind of when he decided like, all right, I think I can do this on my own.
I could do this on my own.
So I gave him the confidence by taking him to those workshops, and he learned enough from Cardone Ventures to say, you know what? I'm going to go do my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of business owners are scared of this and they take it personal and they get really upset. I said, you know what? It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of life. If that's the confidence that he has, I wish him luck. I know he's going to do well, just not better than if he was with me.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? And I always think I have to think like that. I have to be arrogant. I have to be egotistic, at least a little bit like that. But I also have to deliver. I have to walk the walk and talk the talk. And when I fucking say that, when people leave, God bless them. I wish them well.
Just not better than us.
Just not better than us.
Yes.
And I don't think, and I know it sucks to say that, but transparency is a core value. I got to be honest how I feel. And I really don't believe that they're going to do better than if they were with me.
Right.
I feel like as business owners, they go and start their own companies. They're still ain't going to make what they would have made under me.
Right.
And now what we have to do is we have to prove that that's the case.
Right.
Right. So leadership, you went to a 2-day leadership workshop with me in Miami. You want to talk about that?
Yes. Let me tell you about my biggest takeaway with that. Leadership is not about leading people. You have to learn how to lead yourself first. Me leadership. And that kind of blew my head back. Like, how can I be a leader and say all these core values that, you know, I'm this, I'm that, and I can't even lead myself? How can I be a manager and when I can't be disciplined with myself? And that was one of my biggest takeaways from the leadership was the me leadership.
So you're not Julia from 2016 anymore?
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm not Julia from 2024, from the beginning of 2024, you know? And I'm not Julia from 2 months ago, you know? Okay. And every day is just about growing and learning, being better than we were yesterday.
We have to share this.
Yes.
What do you remember about day one of Miami Leadership Workshop evening?
That was a wild night, but we made it to day 2. I will say this. We might have been a little hungover, but it was we got to bond. I think that was the very first time that we really got to bond. And we went and had dinner, went to cigar lounge, hookah lounge, and then to the beach and, you know, just showed us. That
was my first time in Miami ever.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, and we got to hang out. We were fucking drunk. We were wasted.
But we made it the next day. Yes.
Hugging and taking pictures at like 2 a.m. And we still made it to the event the next day. I was late.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened. I just couldn't wake up.
I was on time, hungover, but we made it. And yeah, it was a great experience.
Well, we went back for the second leadership workshop. We redid it again.
We did.
And we still went out and had drinks, but it wasn't like the first time. Yeah.
The second time we took other executives with us.
We did.
Yes.
We took
Marina, Lance, and Peter. Yes. Yeah.
And so from 2020 to 2023, 2024, what's your day like? When you come to work in the morning, what's your day like? And how do you feel you've grown in the last couple of years? What's our plan for next year? Like, how are you feeling where you're at? Now, before we jump into that, let me say this. We're getting stricter on how we operate.
Right.
We're buckling down because we cannot be the same company doing 21 million that's going to do 30 million next year.
Right.
We're not going to be the same company that's going to do 60 million in a couple of years. So we all have to get better. We have to be more strict. We have to be more polished. We have to hold ourselves to higher standards every single day. And I know you see that change with me and Natalie.
Yes.
We learn from mentors that are helping us implement this type of stuff. What do you have to say about all that?
I will say this. You mentioned something in one of our meetings about you had us look at ourselves, like kind of self-evaluate. Are we ready to run a $40 million company? And at that point, that's when you kind of have to take a step back and examine yourself. Yeah, we might have got to 21 million, but am I the person that's going to be able to take it to 40 million? And that's when you really have to take inventory and decide, you know, there's going to be pressure, but diamonds are made under pressure, you know, diamonds come from coal. And that's something that we all had to look at, because I believe we went through the first few years blindly, not knowing how to run a business, to now. And now that we know, now we're held accountable for what we know. And now we're able to grow and to be able to not just scale, was it scaling, but to scale.
Optimizing. So the
Right.
difference between scale and scaling is optimizing your operation is scale,
Right.
where you're growing by optimizing the operation. Scaling is when you start adding bodies
Adding
and start
people.
investing into the company, and then it starts growing on its own
Right.
because you built it so good that it grows on its own. And we're not there yet. We're not at scaling. We're still
No.
at scale. We're at optimizing our operation so that it can just grow itself without us having to push it so hard.
Right.
And that's what we're getting to. Let me say this. I'm very, very proud of you.
Thank you.
I want to thank you publicly to everybody that watches the show. I want to thank you publicly for your loyalty. I want to thank you for your commitment. I want to thank you for your focus and giving it 100% and your energy. And like, I can't imagine, being on this journey with anyone else.
Mhm.
And, we have this saying, right?
Mhm.
We have this saying that if we knew how to make $40 million, we would already be doing it.
Right.
So we have to be open-minded. We have to keep learning, and we have to be okay with setting our standards high, and we have to be okay with the pressure that you said.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all about targets, right? So what's our target next year?
30 million.
30 million. That's our
We
target.
did 21 this year. We grew from 18 to 21, and now we want to grow to 30.
So I keep saying that I was disappointed, but in reality, it's not bad.
No.
Because a 15% growth
Mhm.
from $18 million is a huge jump.
Mhm.
Now, if it would have been 15% from $1 million, that's nothing.
Right.
But it's 15% of 18 million.
Mhm.
So now what we're shooting for is crazy. We're
30
shooting
million.
for like 40 million, 40%. I'm sorry. We're shooting for 40% growth
Mhm.
in a year from 15% to 40%. And even if we don't get that growth, even if we don't get that 40% growth, we're not going to go down without a fight.
Right.
And as long as all the executives, all the leaders in the company, all the managers, and all the team is focused on fighting with us, our chances of getting to that 30 million are very, very high.
Yes.
So again, thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
I love you.
Love you.
You're family to me.
Yes, we are. We've come a long way, and that's how I feel. Like this is more of a family, and yes, you're my boss. However, the pressure is what it takes for us to grow and to get to that 30 million.
Yeah, I mean, I see it like this, Julia. You're a little older than me, but I feel like I'm your younger, bigger brother, right?
Yes.
I'm not your boss. I feel like I'm your coach. I feel like I'm your.
You're one of my probably my only real mentor. Someone that I actually look up to, and I kind of in your shadows. This is how he talks. And I don't know. Just this weekend at the Christmas party, I just felt might come out of me. And people came up to me and they're like, just the way you work the stage now, and I was like, that's only done because of watching you. So you are my most impactful mentor.
Thank you.
And there's someone I love learning from.
It's an honor and a privilege. And I'm going to cut this because I don't want to start crying right now. So, but I really, really do appreciate you. I really
Thank
do.
you.
I'm really proud of you. And I know Natalie feels the same way because we talk about it all the time. Yeah. And I'm just excited for next year. And this time next year to celebrate our growth as our personal growth, our business growth, like our financials, our personal finance, everything, growing in every single way.
Yes.
Except weight.
Right.
We're going to cut.
Hey, I'm down almost 80 pounds. Another podcast.
That's a huge win.
Yes.
And I want to congratulate you for that. Has the self-development that we've learned in business impacted that? Is that part of the why?
It is big time. And that's a part of the me leadership. I can't stand and be like, I stand on my core values when one of my core values is discipline. And I'm that much overweight, I'm not very disciplined in saying no to a donut or to a pizza, So that's one of the things that I had to get under wraps myself. If I'm going to be in leadership, I need to know how to lead me. So from January to now, I've dropped about 80 pounds. I work out. I have a trainer, you know.
Pounds.
Yes, I watch what I eat, and it's something that just helped. It helped with just my work, you know. I'm not just so energy focused, you know. My mind's more clear. I get better sleep, and it's just a win-win for everybody.
So we got to drop kick everybody with this. You've been rolling with me 8 years. What do you think you made the first year?
12,000, maybe 12,000.
And then you fast forward 8 years. Just give me a ballpark about what you're going to make this year. Ballpark it.
From 180 to 200,000.
180 to 200K in 8 years.
Yes.
Vice President of Operations, Julia, next year, when we sit down again and have this podcast again at the end of next year and we celebrate hitting $30 million, I need you to be at $300,000
yes.
of personal revenue.
Yes.
Right? Personal finance income. And we want to celebrate all those wins together.
Yes.
And I'm just freaking excited to
Me
see
too.
you keep growing. And let's just, it's hard work, but it's fun.
It is.
You know, what else will we be doing? Right.
And I'm excited for 2025 with our new targets. And I believe it's something that we definitely have no problem achieving.
We're going to work hard, and it's going to be well deserved.
Yes.
So guys, let's give it up for Julia. Do me a huge favor. Make sure you like and subscribe and comment. If you like this session and we gave you value, all you have to do is just comment so we know. One of our core values is inspiration. We like to give it, but once in a while, we need to receive it as well.
That's right.
And that's the inspiration that we need. Just comment if you like the show, and we'll see you guys next time on Mondays with Mike.